Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I can't talk now. I'm on a call.
Yeah,
Mute
Robin.
yourself, Robin.
8:30.
Robin, mute yourself.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Tato, go for it.
Robin, you have to mute if you get a phone call.
Yeah, I was trying to, but I couldn't see my mute button. Oh, there it is. Okay. I'll turn my.
Thank you all. Maybe the first thing I should say is to ask that if we are not speaking, maybe we should mute ourselves so that we do not interrupt speakers.
That will work well for my coughing fits.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And my name is Tato Ratsebe. I work for the Association of Africans Living in Vermont as an Associate Director and Programs Manager. Welcome to everyone who is watching, as well as the mayoral candidates. We thank you for taking your time this evening to participate in this debate. We are pretty sure that the Burlington residents are very appreciative of this opportunity to learn more about what you have in planning for the coming processes in your running, as well as managing the city. This debate is being sponsored by 3 collaborating organizations: the Vermont Institute of Community and International Involvement, VICII, and it is a nonprofit and educational organization based in Burlington, Vermont, working to build a vibrant, just community with engaged citizens through dialogue, education, debate, discussion, and friendships. The Association of Africans Living in Vermont, where I work, helps new Americans from all parts of the world gain independence in their new communities through a range of integration services, including bridging case management, workforce development, behavioral awareness, and interpreter services programming. The Caroline Fund helps women in emergencies and gives free legal consultation at the Pro Bono Say Law Clinic. I hope I said that right. I'm not a lawyer. Funding is provided by the community in honor of Caroline Bird Critchfield, who was killed in an incident of domestic violence. May her soul rest in peace. Tonight, we have the 4 candidates who are running for the mayor of Burlington with us in alphabetical order: City Councilor Ali Deng, City Council President Max Tracy, Mayor Miro Weinberger, and Patrick White, mayoral candidate. We only this afternoon learned of another candidate, Will Emmons, but we are not able to bring him in at this late time. We hope he will have the opportunity to participate in future debates. Again, I want to thank you all for participating this evening. And I ask that we remember to mute ourselves as we start our debate so that we can give the candidates the maximum time to talk to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Tato. Before we start, I'm going to share some ground rules that we would ask everyone to follow. And thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. Member of the sponsoring organization will ask questions that have been provided in advance to the candidates. We'll ask the candidate to speak in alphabetical order and then rotate. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer. If a candidate specifically mentions another candidate in his comments, that candidate will have 1 minute to respond. Candidate will then be offered the opportunity to ask a question or 2 of another candidate. Each response is limited to 2 minutes. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Finally, the timekeeper will hold up a card that says 15 seconds when there are 15 seconds left, and a card, exactly as Beth showed us, and a card that says time is up when the time is up. I'm now going to turn over to Louise Andrew to begin the question.
Thank you, Jacob. Let's see, Burlington and the country has been hit hard by the COVID pandemic, racial tensions, and deep political divisions. Most city buildings remain closed to the public. Public discourse has been severely limited and divisive, and Burlington's vibrant cultural life is virtually non-existent. What are your priorities for how to restore Burlington to its cultural, civic, and physical health? And we will start in order with Ali.
Thank you first and foremost for having us all here today. And Patrick White, nice to meet you for the first time. Yes, my name is Ali Jang, and I am glad to be answering this question. And you are correct. It has been hard for many not being able to see their families, to celebrate events and birthdays, because in our local government, it has been harder, even harder, because of the type of leadership we endured in the past years. It was all about the optics and never the vision. And I am here to change it. With you, with your vote on town meeting day, we will definitely get there. Now, to your question, and as the next mayor of Burlington, I will ensure that 30% of my time will be in the community to rebuild trust, to strengthen the sense of community. And under the cultural health, I will direct the Burlington Parks and Recreation, the Burlington City foster collaboration with organizations such as the Flint Center for the Performing Arts and local artists, and more to bring back the cultural life that we desperately need to reconnect and celebrate our collective sacrifices that we have done during the COVID-19. One, I will support our NPAs by providing more resources and decision-making powers. I will also establish a neighborhood ambassador program. These are appointed individuals that will work in collaboration with my administration to revitalize each neighborhood in the city. Three, we will build on and expand the community dinner that already exists. And I want to take the time to thank the community members in the New North End that are working proactively to bring that community building efforts via the dinner. In the civic life, I will inspire, as I inspired many new Americans to run for office, and will want to continue to do it at the next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Burlington faces a host of critical economic problems.
Each one of them is gonna.
Oh, yes, sorry, sorry, people.
Max.
Max is next, sorry.
Well, thank you also. I really appreciate the opportunity to engage in this debate. I know a lot of work goes into organizing events like this, so just want to thank you for that as well. I certainly know that this pandemic has been a deeply isolating time for all of us, and I've heard from many neighbors that they're exhausted and want just to return to a sense of normalcy. And I'm with you in this struggle, and I share that wish that we can totally get there. Through my work as a union organizer fighting alongside nurses at UVMMC, I experienced firsthand what frontline workers in our community have been going through. And I've also seen it from the governmental side, because my entire council presidency over the last year has taken place during the pandemic, and we've had to find new ways and more effective ways to involve people in the political process. I've kept our city council running during this pandemic and have held emergency meetings on COVID measures. And in so doing, I've facilitated some of the largest public forums in Burlington history, making sure that people's voices could be heard. I've also worked directly with Burlingtonians who are in deep pain over ongoing systemic racism in our city. COVID-19 did not create systemic racism in Burlington, but it did exacerbate the challenges that our BIPOC neighbors are facing. Our community members have worked so hard to push for necessary transformation, and they are both tired and angry as their loved ones continue to be harmed every day that we delay to making these changes. Mayor Weinberger's recent veto prevented us all from being able to share our voices about a proposed charter change on town meeting day. Now is a time where we need to be listening and providing opportunities to people to lend their voices around this critical issue of oversight and accountability. My priorities as mayor will be about getting us back on our feet, but also making sure that we become more resilient for whatever storms may come. This means that we are making sure that we are more established and that emerging businesses make it through this pandemic. revitalizing our downtown core, providing essential financial and hunger relief, and expanding safe, affordable, and quality housing options across our city. I offer bold yet pragmatic leadership. I lead with the value of taking care of those in need, and I bring my 9 years of on the ground and in the weeds city government experience to make change happen.
Mayor Weinberger, you're next.
Well, he has a minute to respond, right?
Yes.
Right. I'm happy. Sorry, just to clarify, I'm going to answer the.
You have a minute to respond to Max's
Mention of you,
and then 2 minutes to answer the question.
Great. Well,
or whatever you.
I think. Let me first start by saying we've certainly been through an extraordinarily challenging period as a country and as a community, really the test of our generation. But democracy is resilient. And we see that in yesterday's very dramatic inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as president and vice president. And as the brand new president said, democracy prevailed. And our commitment to civic engagement is prevailing right now in this public forum. And I want to thank everyone involved in making this happen tonight for that and bringing this group together. So the Vermont Institute of Community and International Involvement, the Association of Africans Living in Vermont and the Caroline Fund, thank you. And to all my opponents, including I do want to welcome Patrick, who I'm to a meeting for the first time tonight. I look forward to continuing to discuss and debate the issues Burlingtonians care about over the weeks ahead. And so the pandemic has been challenging. I do want to push back a little bit just on the question that Burlington has been particularly hard hit, because the opposite is actually the case. Burlington has been less hard hit because of the public health measures that we have together achieved in implementing here to a remarkable degree between city government, state government, our institutions, businesses, and the public. We have done better than certainly just about everywhere else in the country. If the nation had followed Burlington's lead and Vermont's lead, 250,000 of the 400,000 lives lost could have been saved, as one publication recently estimated. And we did that through immediately setting up a resource and recovery center to deploy relief funds to anyone who needed it, using our instituting an early mask mandate. We were one of the, we did so immediately as soon as we were allowed to, and then actually fabricating 25,000 high quality reusable masks, and doing things like setting up a low barrier shelter. So I'm just going to use my extra minute too, since I'm sort of, if that's all right, Beth. So another early step that we set up right at the beginning of this pandemic is committing to a racially just response through new teams like the Trusted Community Voices team, which has given us new ways of communicating throughout the community and making sure that there are interpreters at testing sites. So we've been able to keep our eye on the ball and move forward other big initiatives not related to the pandemic. We continue to make progress with the Net Zero Energy City effort. We opened City Hall Park. We have launched a task force against racial that was looking at slavery and reparations here. In terms of how we rebuild after the pandemic, I'll just say this. Here's the bottom line. Until our community is immunized, suppressing the virus must remain the city's top priority. And even at the cost of some of the trade-offs that were noted in the question that we've been talking about. Once the pandemic is brought to an end, then we will bring the same kind of all-out effort to leading a just and equitable recovery. It is a tested, proven leadership team will be key to that, and that's why this election is so important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. And your time to respond.
All right, so I'm gonna have to keep a few of my answers short and sweet, just because I'm fighting off the end of a cold, so having kind of a hard time talking and not coughing. Thankfully, not COVID. So one of the big things as far as moving forward, and unfortunately, hindsight being 2020, I wish we could have found a better way to begin with, is we need to make sure that our Main Street businesses and restaurants can open up of course, safely and following the advice of medical professionals locally here. But as far as recovery goes, many of these businesses are not going to be able to recover, only being able to do a portion of, if any, business. That, and on top of the events that we normally have in Burlington, down by the waterfront and on Church Street, without those two things, we're not going to really see any cultural or economic recovery anytime soon. Those are really two big things that we need to get back running.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Burlington is facing a host of critical economic problems, primarily arising from the pandemic. Many small businesses struggling or closing, a hole that has been in the middle of the city without generating revenues for 3 years. Significant commercial and industrial tax-based revenue losses, among others. How would you address these economic problems as the mayor of Burlington? And we're going to start with Max.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the question. Really appreciate it. I think it's a crucial question because it deals with exactly what we're going to do, not only in this moment, but how we move forward. And I'm so grateful for the small businesses that make Burlington what it is, whether we've been getting groceries, ordering takeout, buying supplies. They've certainly gotten us through this pandemic. And I think it's our duty and responsibility to now get them through it as well, so that they can keep functioning and thriving both in the midst of the pandemic, but also on the other side. And so we need to make sure that we do everything we can to partner with state and federal entities to make sure that complex grant and loan programs are made more accessible, and that we do everything we can to go beyond these programs. We'll also be a mayor who grows district specific. So we have 4 districts here in Burlington that represent different neighborhoods in our city. And so we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to bring business owners together, to share expertise and offer planning resources in a municipal context at the neighborhood level, so that we can really draw on that mutual support and collective goodwill as we come out of the pandemic. We also need to make sure that we are keeping businesses running and people housed. And so I think a key aspect as we come out of the pandemic is preventing commercial and residential eviction protections and leveraging every possible power that city government has to prevent people from losing their business spaces and becoming unhoused. We'll also explore delays, reductions, or deferrals of taxes and fee collections for small businesses to help minimize the drain on already reduced cash flows. And I'll also support low and no interest loans using a combination of Federal Small Business Association, state agency, and municipal funds to provide much needed relief. The kind of downtown development we need strengthens the health and viability of small businesses and provides significant additional and truly affordable housing to our residents. We must have a strong local economy, and we must end the trend of working people, families, and people living on fixed incomes being priced out of Burlington. When it comes to City Place, we cannot continue to give developers whatever they ask for in hopes that in just giving them a little bit more, we'll be able to move this project forward. I opposed the project from the beginning and have since been calling for holding developers accountable to promises that were made.
Okay,
We need
Max,
to call this.
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up. Maria Weinberger, your turn.
Thank you. So first of all, when we look back on the last 9 years, the time that I've had the privilege of serving this community, up until the pandemic was a period of substantial economic growth and increasing vibrancy in our downtown. We went through a period where we saw the downtown thrive as it never had before. Record numbers of people coming to enjoy our downtown meals, arts, the festivals, expansion of the number of hotels in the downtown. It was just a very prosperous period for the downtown. And it gives me a lot of confidence that on the other side of this terrible pandemic, we're going to emerge from this crisis, if we do it right, stronger, more just, greener, and more affordable than before. That period of real success and improvement included the creation of over 1,300 new homes, more than twice the amount of new homes that had been created in the comparable prior period, because it was a real focus of city governments. We believed that to make good on the idea that I think we all agree with, that housing should be a human right. If you're serious about that, you have to build a lot more housing. And that's exactly what we did for people of all income levels over the last 9 years. We've taken a huge hit in 2020, like the entire country, like the entire world. The key going forward from here is for the city government to lead the recovery with the same kind of focus and energy and focus on data and community and making sure no one was left behind that we brought to fighting the pandemic. And we're going to need, just to give a scope, there's currently about $5 trillion that is going to be dispersed by the federal government. And a lot of that is going to go through state and local governments. This is, again, a reason we need a proven leadership team here in Burlington that can deliver on this, not just talk about leveraging the fund, but actually has a record of doing that. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Patrick?
Sorry, just finishing a coughing fit there. So similar to my first answer, as far as some of the economic impacts and stuff, I don't think I think we're yet to see some of the full impacts of all the shutdowns, and we really do need to find a way to get some of the businesses and events up and running safely. As far as the pit goes, I think the current leadership, which actually includes all three of the other candidates here, has no valid excuse for the failure as far as the pit goes. We need to get a new plan in place. We need to get the project finished out. Generally, we need to look to develop the city more in certain aspects. We need more housing. We need a lower cost of living generally, which is really going to be kind of pushed forward by more availability of housing. Right now, I know the city is taxing apartments at market value of $1,400 for a one-bedroom. Most of the people my age and younger, and I don't know many of them that can afford $1,400 to $1,600, which is what I'm seeing for one bedrooms in Burlington. And we need more housing to help drive that down. The pit needs to get done because right now it's a loss as far as tax revenue. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, can we?
You can each of you can have 1 minute to respond since you mentioned all three candidates. So.
Oh, I thought it was if I mentioned any one person specifically by name.
Who would like to respond to that? All right, Mayor Weinberger.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So let's talk about City Place. So first of all, it was the right decision to go forward with this ambitious, important plan to try to fix that part of the city, which has been problematic since the 60s, since the city tore down a vibrant neighborhood back in the 60s. We are now on the cusp, because we prioritize this, of, for the first time in decades, having homes and jobs and reconnected streets in that part of town. This is something that people of Burlington called for in Plan VTV. It's something they called for when they went to the polls in 2016. It was the right vision. So I don't know why any candidate would proudly say they've been against this from the start. This is the right project. Second of all, it's not accurate, as one of the other candidates just said, to suggest the city's lost a lot of money over this. We haven't, because I negotiated an agreement that protects the city. We've been paid over $500,000 by the developers since the delays began, because I got in place an agreement that protected us, and they have been in breach of that agreement, and we have been holding them accountable. Finally, the last thing is, if I'm given another 3 years to lead this city, we will deliver on the jobs and the homes and the new streets here, just as we have delivered on a new City Hall Park, just as we've delivered on transforming the northern waterfront, rebuilding the entire bike path. Me and my team are the team to get this project done.
Thank you. Max, you wanted to respond also?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I think that, I don't know how, when we're in year 3 of having hole in the ground, that we can call this the right project, or that this as having been a wise decision for our city. It was something that was out of scale with our city, and that did not meet the diverse needs of our community and create opportunities for people across the socioeconomic spectrum to participate and enjoy that public space. So I think that it is a real the project is a real failure at this point, and what we need is not additional special treatment given to the developer, but we need real accountability brought. And we've seen continuing acquiescence to any demands made by the developer. I think we need to really hold them accountable in this setting, setting real milestones and making sure that taxpayers are not on the hook for any future expenses related to the public improvements.
Ali, would you like to respond? You're on mute. You're on mute,
Yeah,
Ali.
let me unmute. Good. Okay. So I think it will be important for me to address that I completely love any type of development in the city and in downtown. The pit, I am 100%, I want to see it through. And as the next mayor, I would do all in my power to see it happen. But the issue here is a failed leadership from Mira Weinberger about the pit. I'm responding to this because we lost tax base. Downtown businesses are leaving because of a lack of leadership from him. And the other element about this is also, why do we need to bring these developers to court because of a failed development that he brought to Burlington? And Burlingtonians did reject, but he pushed it on the people, and now here is where we are. I think it's completely unacceptable, and we cannot afford another 3 years of a failed leadership. But I am completely in support and want to see this development completed under my administration.
Right, thank you, candidates. Robin, I'm passing it on to you.
I have not answered the question yet. I think each candidate did receive a time to speak about it. I have not yet. If you could allow me.
Sorry, yes.
No problem. Thank you. And I think the question number 2 was specific about how would you address these economic problems as the mayor of Burlington?
Correct, sorry.
Sorry, Ali.
No problem. No problem. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak up about this.
Of course.
So, as you all know, we have experienced a failed leadership, like I said, before even COVID-19 came to our shores. Downtown was already struggling. Businesses leaving to other municipalities, a huge pit on the ground due to a pipe dream development project that never came true. The loss of tax base is right there. Even the sense of feeling safe in our downtown was a problem. From workers, bathrooms are not even accessible or available. We can no longer afford what we all are aware of a failed leadership from Mira Weinberger. I have a solid plan to rebuild our economy. 1, I want to control spending, fiscal responsibility, stop borrowing from our future selves, and control the city's debt. That's the first fundamental aspect that I need to see. 2, to support businesses, my administration will eliminate sooner the personal property business tax, sooner than 2026, to better support our local businesses. I have what we call a community wealth building plan. This plan will be available by tomorrow on my website. And number 4, have an open line of communication with local businesses via the Burlington Business Association. Here is a question that we all need to explore. How can the city and the local businesses work together to make sure that our local economy becomes vibrant for every single person that live and work or raise children here? Thank you for giving me that.
Thank you.
Mayor Weinberger, 1 minute.
Great, thank you. So that plan laid out, at least half of that plan laid out by Councillor Jang actually sounds a lot like the leadership over the last 9 years. I mean, to hear that fiscal responsibility is going to be a priority, need to point out it has been this administration that has taken the city from the edge of junk bond status to a AA credit rating, saving $17+ million and counting for taxpayers, locking that in terms of future savings. And with that sound basis, we've been able to do dramatic expansions of our investments in social services and in infrastructure But we have been very disciplined as we did that. We've kept the increase in property taxes below the rate of inflation, well below the rate of inflation. There has not, Councilor Jang is right, Burlingtonians pay too much in terms of property taxes in general, but that's not because of what city government is doing. Thanks for the chance to respond to that.
Thank you. Robin? You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on
There.
mute.
There you go.
Now I'm back again. So our next question is on the subject of education, rethinking education in the light of this pandemic. Those of you with children know that for many of them, this has been a failure. Remote learning has been very difficult. And education in Burlington is facing some major decisions in the near future. So my question is, how might education be improved during and after the pandemic? How would you foster exchange amongst diverse communities and build critical thinking among Burlington residents? And how would you create public spaces for students? I think we've all felt sort of estranged from each other. We need to create some way for people to get together again as soon as possible. So those are my questions. Let's see, Miro is the first to answer.
Great. Thank you, Robin. Yes, remote learning is incredibly challenging for our students and has some terrible outcomes in terms of equity, we know. And that is a big reason why it has been such a priority of the last year for the city to box the virus in, to contain the virus and box it in so that we could get the important parts of our society out of the box as much as possible. In particular, the highest priority was getting our kids back to in-person learning. And we have succeeded at that to a remarkable degree here in Burlington, where our elementary and middle schools have been open since the fall and have stayed open even as there has been some spikes in the overall virus. And in terms of secondary education, our college is open to in-person learning and bucked the national trends because of their coordination with local government and the state, because we're all working together. We saw incredible success at the colleges that happened very few other places. So that has allowed us to keep the in-person learning going. The exception to that, of course, is the high school, which is not as a result of the pandemic, but is because of this environmental issue that was encountered in the renovation. As soon as that crisis began, my team offered any support we could. I personally have been on the phone with Superintendent Flanagan very frequently throughout this crisis, and I was supportive of this plan that has come together in kind of incredible speed to repurpose Macy's for a downtown high school and to have that open in hopefully as soon as March. And I'll say, as a dad of a 14-year-old who's a freshman this year, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that plan succeeds. Longer term, I'm a big supporter and big believer in experiential education. That's why I've been a big supporter of this Lake and College program that has been a great opportunity for many high school students. Having a high school downtown is going to give us even more opportunities for that experiential learning, and the city is going to fully back it under my leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thank you, Miro. Patrick, you're next.
So the youth these days, being so internet focused and gaming focused, I would have hoped that remote learning would have gone better, but I do have a 16-year-old brother, and I can tell you that it hasn't worked out, possibly because of those internet and gaming distractions. Moving forward, I think that because of that stuff also, though, so many young people are already great at socializing with their friends via, games, Zoom, video calls, things like that. But of course, it doesn't really quite measure up to hanging out with your friends in person. I think also moving forward, the most important people to talk to as far as what we should do and what is working and what isn't working are our students. I think a lot of times, people make these plans and try to push things through that a lot of young people will blatantly say, this isn't working, this isn't going to work, here's what might work. And a lot of times their voices just get drowned out by, bureaucracy and people who are telling them that, they know better, whether or not the process actually works. So I think it's going to be important to look to our students, and oftentimes they'll come out with some pretty inspired stuff.
So you'd hold special sessions with getting the opinions from students somehow? How would you do that?
I don't really think it'd be too difficult. Social media is a great way. Is looking to our teachers in their classes. It wouldn't be all that hard to get the opinions of students. Of course, probably middle school and up, our younger students may not have as much of an ability to put some input in there, but I don't think it would be all that difficult to put something together.
Okay, Ali, you're next.
Ali, you're muted.
Thank you. So far, I don't know if my opponent have been answering this question. This is such an important and critical question, and it seems that they're dodging the question. Now, here's my answer. Education funding is one of the biggest issues in the state of Vermont. I'm a parent of 2 school-age children attending the Burlington School. I am also an educator, a property taxpayer. So I am a stakeholder who understands our needs and values of a good education in the 21st century. Education is happening every single day, everywhere. The city and lake semester is a concrete example of how kids should learn with this emerging technology in place. Community-based learning, proficiency-based learning, place-based learning are concepts that are no longer new, but they have potential with the technology to be strengthened. I was at the steering committee with the Partnership for Change, and was charged to look into education in the 21st century, how it should look like and different from the traditional education where you have a high school, a student, and also teachers. I am the only candidate here with a platform that speaks to the need of strengthening the relationship between the Burlington School District and the city of Burlington. We could use the pilot fund of about 1.7 million now, and my administration will look into education from early childhood education to high school graduation, as well as vocational, technical educational opportunities. I am also the founder and manager of the Burlington School District Parent University. We have been building community, bringing people together, bringing organizations together, and to empower parents as equal partners in their children's education. I want to continue to do this when the voters give me the opportunity to lead this great city starting March 2nd at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ali. So Max, you're our last one here.
Thank you for that. So it's certainly no secret that students and their families are really struggling right now in this moment. I see that directly as I watch and work with my partner to support her in working with her 4th grader at Edmonds while trying to balance work. And I think we also know pretty clearly that the pandemic has made all of the things that were challenging about education before, whether it be poverty or systemic racism, that much worse. And so we need to be focused on meeting the needs of students, however that can best happen. Certainly with Burlington High School, students have been deeply impacted by remote learning, but also the lack of even having a physical campus as a result of the PCBs. And so we need to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to partner with the school board, teachers, and the Agency of Education to reduce the burden that this relocation will have on taxpayers, to make sure that we have ways to cover this unexpected expense, but also to make this as positive an experience as possible for the students who will be attending high school at the Macy's. And so to me, that means expanding experiential education opportunities and skills and skills development offerings, setting up internships with city departments and local businesses, and just making sure that we do everything we can, again, to also make sure that the students are being educated by a diverse set of teachers so that their teachers look like them. We know that COVID has changed everything we thought we knew was possible. And so I think our job is now to really pivot to prepare our students for life after high school by really making sure that we're providing meaningful opportunities to engage while also working with teachers that look like our community. And so that's, I think, a really crucial aspect of it. I think we also need to go beyond the idea that education takes place just in school and continue to build on work to expand services for teens in our community and establish a teen center, making sure that we're providing round-the-clock support for students both in and outside of schools.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. Has anyone, I think no one mentioned another candidate in what they spoke. So maybe we'll move on to Sandy Barrett asking the next question.
Right, and I'm going to ask this question from the perspective of the Caroline Fund. I became, last summer when Battery Park was occupied, to draw attention to the behavior of the city police department, it raised concerns with the community and especially with members of the Caroline Fund about how the demand to, quote, defund the police and the caution for people to, quote, think twice before calling the police could put women, especially women in domestic violence situations, in real trouble, even life-threatening situations. So my question to all of you is, what in the current mood of criticism of the police will you do to ensure that women, kids, and all victims of crime, particularly victims of crime in their own homes, are really protected and that their safety and health is ensured? And I guess the first person would be, to answer this in alphabetical, I guess, order would be whom? Ali, right?
Patrick.
Patrick, okay.
You can move to Ollie. I'm about to have a nice coughing fit, and I'll take up the lead or the end.
Ali?
Ali? Ali?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for the question. And I think alphabetical order, I will be on the ballot first. I think it's good on that sense. Now, in terms of to your question, I think we have made a big mistake defending the police without a plan. Despite my presentation, my amendment that I brought to the Racial Justice Alliance, the most critical part about all of this is the current mayor has not vetoed that resolution. So basically, with his power, he could have vetoed it. And we go back to the drawing board, but he did not. Why? Because maybe he's in support of defunding the police, which I was not, and I will never do. Because I understand we should not be targeting the police or putting them under the microscope. This is about public safety. And public safety should be managed by those who have the knowledge and expertise. Women, children need to be protected 24/7, every single day. We should not afford another 3 years of hardship, of lack of trust, lack of transparency, and the change need to happen today, need to happen tomorrow. Another element about this is also the city councils, my colleagues, none of them has spoken up when we had Black children being victimized here. It was maybe from a place of privilege. I understand what discrimination is, how it looks like. I understand not having a voice, and it is about time that we change that and make Burlington the best small city in North America. Thank you.
Since Moreau's name was mentioned, he has an opportunity to respond. Is that correct?
And Max.
Yes, thank you. I would like to-
Right, yeah. Moreau?
Yeah.
Weinberger?
Thank you, Sandy. Yeah, this suggestion by Councilor Jang that I'm for defunding the police is just patently incorrect. Of course, as everyone knows, I've been the voice standing against a council that has taken, I think, some very dangerous action I offered a whole alternative in my budget that would have kept a floor of officers between 85 and 90, well above the emergency staffing level, and fought very hard for that. And unfortunately, the council stripped that out of the budget and created the mess we're in now, because there was no plan for what would happen if that budget was not passed. And, you know, speaking of vetoes, I mean, it was shocking that Councilor Jang did not support my veto a couple weeks ago that was instituted because of how concerned I am about the police department being dismantled and not supporting and retaining the officers we need to provide proper public safety here. So I'll have more to say about how we keep people safe with my answer, but I just needed to respond to that blatant inaccuracy.
Max is next.
Yeah, so should I take the rebuttal and then answer the question, or how do you prefer that we do this?
Looking to our fabulous rule keeper, Lou, I think that, yes, you have a chance to rebut and also to give your answer.
Yes.
All right, well, let me start with my answer and then I'll get into the issues that have been raised here. So I think that there's no question that transformation is needed in our public safety systems, and certainly this call for transformation has always been and will always be about making people safer. As a community with limited resources, we must be thoughtful and efficient about how we use these resources to take care of everyone that lives here. And so I appreciate the deep sensitivity that went into this question, because we as a community do not focus on supporting survivors and victims of domestic violence enough. And so our public safety system, however, is rooted in patriarchy and white supremacy, and is not the only or the best way to ensure safety for people identifying as women. I think both to support our Black and brown neighbors and who are harmed at the hands of police at alarmingly higher rates than their white counterparts, and to protect those vulnerable to abuse, we must create trauma-informed, non-police roles that can better engage with and address safety concerns for these populations. Police officers currently respond to community needs that extend far beyond their purview and training. And just as we've transitioned parking enforcement away from armed officers, we can also transition responses to routine noise complaints to officials without guns, while also trying to free up resources for us to hire trained mental health and substance abuse treatment, disorder treatment, domestic violence specialists to meet with and respond the needs of our community. So the goal here is really to better meet the needs of our most vulnerable in the community, and to turn to armed officers only for situations in which they're absolutely necessary. I would also just want to respond to Councilor Jang's point that none of us were speaking up about police misconduct or violence. I have spoken up over the time on council in 2015, again in 2017, calling for police oversight. And then again in May 2019, some of my colleagues on the city council and I put forward a resolution specifically around accountability and around police accountability that Councilor Jang voted against at that point. So I have been raising these issues clearly, and I think we need to do much more to bring oversight and accountability to our police.
I think Patrick is next. Patrick?
Patrick, yeah.
So just first and foremost, I got to make this clear. Nobody should fear for their safety when reaching out to the police for help. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like every interaction I've had with officers in and outside of Burlington has been positive. I've had more than a few negative interactions with officers, even if it's just, you know, a bad disposition if I'm saying hi, you know, or worse. But when it comes to the protests at Battery Park, some of the specific examples that the protesters were pointing to, I think were completely valid. And I think if the city had taken those instances of violence seriously from the get-go, we would never have seen an occupation of Battery Park like that. All three of the primary instances there were cleared. And looking at them, you know, hindsight being 2020, but they shouldn't have. As far as the call to defund the police and the city council's knee-jerk reaction to, without very much forethought, you know, just cut it down. and demoralize and destroy our current police force, I think that was an absolute mistake. You don't start home improvement by striking a match and destroying your house. As far as reforming the police, Max is right. We do need to transition some officers to, non-armed roles that respond to certain circumstances where it's clear that they're unnecessary. But also there's a lot of circumstances where we can't predict whether or not an armed officer is necessary. There are perfectly normal traffic stops where officers are killed. So to act like we can just know every single situation in which one's going to require an armed response we're kidding ourselves.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Moreau's next.
Thank you. So domestic violence is a terrible and enormous problem in this country, in this community, and there's a lot of reason to be concerned that, like many of our social problems, it has gotten worse as a result of the pandemic and the isolation of the pandemic. And clearly the police have a major role to play in keeping women and children safe from the domestic violence. And that is a big reason why I have always been very clear. We need a well-resourced professional police department in this city. And it is one of the big reasons why I am so concerned by the direction that the city council has been taking our city, even when told that one of the things that we would have to step back from if the department was allowed to get to be less than 80 people would be we would have to end this position that I created about 5 years ago that is a domestic violence specialist within the police department that has played a big, has really expanded our capacity to help survivors of domestic violence. At the same time, of course, we need transformation, cultural and structural transformation of our police department. I have long stood for that. It has been one of my top priorities since 2015. We have implemented so many reforms over the last 5 years, whether it was being one of the first departments in New England to mandate body cameras on all its officers, to severing its ties to the military years ago, to completely overhauling the way we respond to acute mental health calls, and one of the most innovative and progressive strategies in the country. We've made many changes. We need to make many more going forward. That's why I've created a new position, the Department of Police Transformation. I'm very committed to both things. Finally, let's be clear that it's not just the police, of course, that play a big role in keeping our survivors of domestic violence safe. The steps to end domestic violence is an outstanding partner to the city, and it's one that I have stepped up to support numerous times. When they lost funding suddenly from a big funder a few years ago, I went to the state and got that funding, got funding to help replace that. And we're working with them now to make sure that the resources and infrastructure in Chittenden County for domestic violence remain very strong.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
The candidates will now have the opportunity to ask one or two questions of each other, depending on the time that we have allotted here. Each candidate will have the opportunity, as I said, in the order that I call on people, because this was alphabetical to start with, but now we're rotating. So the first person to ask a question of another candidate is Patrick. You're on mute.
Yep. So I have two questions prepared. The first of which is for Mayor Weinberger. You've had 3 terms, and during these 3 terms, you have had some economic successes. I will give you that, but during those 3 terms, the issue with the water treatment plant just constantly polluting our lake has seemed to fall to the side, while projects like redoing parts of the bike path that don't need it, the City Hall Park, and the pit, they've all taken precedence. If you are elected to a 4th term, during that term, can you promise us that before the end of it, that problem will be fixed?
Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate the chance to talk about our record of protecting Lake Champlain, which is one I'm proud of. We start in 2009, the city created a stormwater utility. On my watch, we've dramatically expanded resources for that stormwater utility to protect Lake Champlain. We did have some challenges in the summer of 2018 in particular, where we had a significant breakage and from equipment, and we responded to that. We went to the voters and we got a historic $30 million bond to address that. And we are in the process of implementing that money. Actually, 2021 is going to be a huge year on that. We have about $11 million worth of projects in one form or another of implementation that will replace that old equipment and make it better than ever. We also, this is one of the reasons this kind of investment that we actually have far less as a historic basis. We've gotten better and better as a community at protecting Lake Champlain. We have less of these emissions than we did even as recently as the last decade by a substantial amount. We have less of these CSO events. So we're moving in the right direction. Do we have more work to do? We do. This is a generational problem, but we're well on our way with that historic $30 million investment, which over 90% of the city supported, and surprisingly, which was not supported by Councillor Jang in a vote that I've always found quite surprising.
Okay, Ali, if you have a question to ask another candidate, it's your turn.
Thank you again for bringing us here together. And I think in terms of the process, whenever a candidate's name is mentioned, please allow that candidate also to respond.
You may respond.
Initially,
You have 1
yes.
minute.
Yeah. So I want to respond first, if you would allow me that.
Begin.
If it's okay. Okay.
Of course.
Yeah. So I think Mira Weinberger here has mentioned my name in terms of the vote about the water treatment vote. I think it was about the $30 million that was going to go to the ballot to voters. I proudly voted against it. And if we are to do it again, I would vote against it again, because I will not ask taxpayers $30 million to fix the water, underground water utilities we have without an insurance that will actually work. It seems as if to me, it's just throwing money outside of the window. It's not good governance. Good governance should be practical. Good governance should be forward thinking, and good governance should also have a plan that will fix a problem. Voters did support it. And from there, I started to support the program, because what the voters want, that's what I want. I am always about the people. Now, thank you. My time is up. Now,
So
the question that I have, yeah.
2 minutes to answer the question, yes.
The question that I have is for Mira Weinberger, and I am asking him, why didn't he veto the racial justice resolution when the council passed it from 9-3? Why didn't he veto it?
Thank you, Councillor Jang. You know, again, on the next night, I presented a whole, it wasn't necessary to veto it and strike down all the other, a number of other very positive provisions. I came forward with a whole alternate plan in my budget the next night that was a very reasonable compromise, and that that would have kept us out of this mess. It would have preserved a floor of 85, at least, you know, a target of between 85 and 90 officers, which would have kept us well above emergency staffing and would have given us the time to provide these assessments. So came forward with an alternative plan. It was rejected by the council, very unfortunately. Now we have another plan before the council, and it will be before the council for a vote on Monday, which again would raise the cap back to the 84, that 284, and would provide additional resources to ensure that public safety. And I hope that this time the council listens to us and is not dismissive of our concerns of dropping into emergency staffing and the cutbacks that I would involve on positions like the domestic violence specialist, on our 3:30 in the morning to 7 a.m. shift. Hopefully this time the council will take this opportunity to work with the administration, work with the department, and ensure the safety of Burlingtonians while also making progress on police transformation that is needed.
Okay, Max, it's your turn to ask a question of another candidate.
Thank you. I also have a question for Mayor Weinberger. So Mayor Weinberger, you mentioned the importance of professionalism in the police force. And however, during this term, you have hidden information from the council and the public related to police misconduct, sought to have a medical examiner's report changed, and were dishonest to the media about former Chief Del Pozo's conduct while allowing him to do the same. What would you say to Burlingtonians who have lost faith and trust in your leadership?
Thanks, Max. As I've spoken many times, this has been one of the most discussed events in Burlington for the last couple of years, and I was faced with a very challenging situation that involved the question of what you do when an employee has made a serious mistake, but also when we have responsibilities to all of our employees to protect their sensitive medical information. It was very hard, a very challenging situation. And I have acknowledged numerous, I acknowledged that if I had to do it all over with 2020 hindsight, there would be things I would do differently. I have, what I would say to Burlingtonians is, and what I believe Burlingtonians believe is that what's important over the next 3 years is these issues that we've been talking about tonight, where we go from here as a city, where we go with our department from here. And I think that is, certainly this one of the most important issues in this election is going to be around policing. And there, I stand for continued reform and innovation in policing, as we have been doing for years. I stand for cultural and structural transformation, but I also stand for a well-resourced professional police department, something that Councilor Tracy, unfortunately, I think you have been working against and working to dismantle. And I hope, that's the policing issue that I think voters are going to be focused on, and where there is a very clear choice between us.
Okay, thank you. And Moreau, now you can ask another candidate a question and they'll have 2 minutes to answer.
Great, thank you. I have a question for Max. Max and I, we came into office at the same time. We were both elected 9 years ago. In that time, I've been, as the mayor, been very focused on our housing crisis and creating as many new homes as possible. I believe, again, if we're serious about making housing a human right, we got to create a lot more housing for people of all income levels. I hear a lot about additional enforcement and regulation. What would you do, Max, to actually create more homes and create more availability of housing and more affordability for Burlingtonians?
Really appreciate the question, Mayor. I think that it's a crucial one in this race. And I think that what we've seen over the last 9 years has been an emphasis on market-driven housing policies that are focused pretty exclusively on supply. And where I think we've gone wrong has been not doing enough to stabilize rents. Wages have not kept up with rents in our community. We've seen people having to spend well over a third of their income and make very difficult decisions between whether to buy food or pay their rent, whether to buy crucial medications for themselves or their families, or to pay rent. And what we have not seen in response to this trend is a willingness to embrace bold new policies to control rents and bring real stabilization to a market that is completely out of control when it comes to the costs for the average Burlingtonian. And so I do support taking a more aggressive stance as a city in order to bring rents in control, because the market-driven approach that your administration has taken has been a failure. I mean, look at the rents and housing prices in our community. Have they gone down over the course of this administration? Have they even stabilized? I don't think so. So I think we have a situation where we need to explore and implement different strategies to address this crisis.
So do I have a chance to rebut that?
1 minute.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, I appreciate it. So I think what I heard there, I did not actually hear any ideas or even commitment or even sense that it is important that we continue to create new homes. And I think that's unfortunate that this strategy is working, and it is one that is needs to be committed to for many years if we are going to dig out of the deep hole that the kind of policies that you just listed created in terms of housing affordability. It's those kind of policies, over-regulation, constraint on the ability to create new homes that created the housing mess that we're in. But it has stabilized under our term. And we've seen published reports that show that creating new homes has increased vacancy rates, doubled vacancy rates, and brought down significantly the rate of inflation of housing. Has it solved everything? Of course not. This is going to take years of commitment to get done. And that's why the policies you just listed there are so troubling. I do have to say, though, it's unfair to say that we have just been about market housing. We have built more permanently affordable housing, hundreds and hundreds of new homes, permanently affordable housing on my watch. And we did that because we doubled the housing trust fund. I'm as committed, the city is committed as ever on my watch to permanently affordable housing. And any suggestion otherwise is just not true.
Thank you, Mayor. So Patrick,
Time for another round.
we're going to do a second round since we have time. So back again, we're going to start again with Patrick and go through all of you. So Patrick, you have another question.
So real quick before my second question, I just wanted to ask Mayor Weinberger, my question of you, very simply, could have been a yes or a no, and I didn't hear either. Are you able to commit to solving that problem by the end of a fourth term?
Am I able to commit to? I'm absolutely able to commit to by the end of another 3 years, we will have by far the best wastewater and stormwater infrastructure that we have had in the city's history. We are making historic generational investments in those systems and the lake. We are going to do a better job than we have ever done in our 150 plus year history as a city at protecting Lake Champlain. Is it that's what I think the goal should be, and we're well on our way towards it. And yes, over the next 3 years, we're going to fully deliver on what we've committed to the people of Burlington and the region.
Thank
Cool.
you. Ali, I'm sorry.
So my actual second question, I just needed some clarification from Mayor Weinberger on that. My actual second question is for both Ollie and Max. Basically, both of you were city council members. While a lot of the things you are campaigning against right now were either established or continued to happen, as mayor, well, going from city councilor to mayor, in some ways you're actually giving up some amount of power. What is it as mayor that you expect to get done that you can't get done as city councilors?
Who would answer first?
I think it was directed to Ali, right? Or not?
It was
both Ollie
directed
and Max.
and Max. Okay, so I think if I understand the question is why I'm running for mayor, knowing that I had the power to advance couple of what I want to see through as a mayor, right? Okay. So I think it is why I'm running. It's not about getting things done as a city councilor. As a city councilor, I am the only independent. And if you have noticed, I stopped bringing resolution forward. Because why? Partisan politics. Many of my piece of legislations, whether they die 6-6, whether Democrats vote in support or progressive vote against it. Why I'm running for mayor is I want to change the direction the city is going. This direction is not working for anybody. Transparency, we have not experienced what it is for so long. People no longer trust the city government. People no longer respect the city workers. People no longer are putting an emphasis in terms of the social services and programs that Burlingtonians need and want. People want to live in dignity, and I want to change the direction. No more development. And I also want to make sure that our city taxes are used for the right programs and the right services that works for the people and that what people need. The direction to change it, it is for me to build a team, a new team, great and incredible people that have the same values that I have. Make sure that our downtown is vibrant, businesses are booming. That's why I want to run for mayor. And also tackle systemic racism. Because of all of these people running, I know what discrimination is, how it feels like, and how it plays out.
Thank you, Ali. Max?
I think it's a great question. In terms of why I'm running for mayor, is because as a city councilor, you're one of 12. And you're trying to balance your work responsibilities with the responsibilities that are quite expansive and could very well be full-time experiences. And it can be very frustrating, honestly, to have big ideas about a wide range of different challenges that our community is facing, whether that's around housing, climate action, systemic racism, and not being able to be fully dedicated because you have to put food on the table, you have to pay your rent, and it's challenging to balance those things as a counselor. I've learned how to do it over the course of 9 years, but it's a real challenge. And so I look to the mayor's office and rising to the mayor's office as an opportunity to expand and build upon the work that I've done on the city council in collaboration with that council, while also having significant support from department heads and city departments, as well as other organizations that can be leveraged in service of these goals around climate, of uprooting systemic racism, of making housing much more affordable in our community. And so those are the kinds of things that I'm really excited about as your next mayor, and what I'll bring to the table, and why I want to make the change from being council president currently to being the mayor.
Thank you. Ali, you now have an opportunity to ask a question of another candidate.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so I know that we all have experienced so many scandals as a city, and it has been very, very, very hard. So many lies, there is this lack of trust that truly the economy, the city's debt is skyrocketing. And I think to Patrick's point, I just want to know from Max Tracy, we've been serving together since 2017. And I cannot recall any policy idea that you, Max, have brought forward. And I'm not saying what you co-sponsor, but I'm just saying something that you're passionate about, you worked on, and that you led to bring it on the table. And was just wondering if we can remind me one or two that came specifically or directly from you and not another organization.
So a couple of things. I've been, in the last year, I've had to shift towards facilitating the council and keeping the city council going, managing significant public.
Sorry, but I'm saying the past 3 years.
Can I please answer the question? So the question, to your answer, I have done a variety of different, worked with a variety of different counselors. Just this year, I worked with Councillor Paul to forward a resolution regarding overdose prevention sites. I also worked with the Racial Justice Alliance and Councillor Freeman in cooperation and collaboration with Taisha Green, Director of Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging, to bring forward a resolution around creating a reparations task force, and then did the work to make sure that that task force got up and running and is currently operating, looking at Burlington's role in chattel slavery. I've also brought significant big plans around transforming our transportation system, specifically Plan BTV Walk Bike. I played an instrumental role in that. In terms of other transportation goals, I was a leading member of the transition to make North Winooski and the entire Winooski corridor safer, leading the way when it came to the 4-to-3 conversion in the downtown section. And then I also played a leading role in making sure that we found a good solution of where to overnight the Amtrak train. Instead of putting it next to one of the largest concentrations of people of color in our community, I pushed back on that, worked closely with DPW and other stakeholders to find an appropriate and beneficial solution, which was to keep it in the water, to keep it in the rail yard. So those are just a few things that I've worked directly on. There's obviously a lot more because we're working constantly in the city, but I think that to say that I haven't done anything is a complete mischaracterization of what I've done and what I've worked on over this time, over my time on the council.
All right, thank you. Max, it's now your turn to ask a question of another candidate.
Sure. So one of the things that one of the changes that we've experienced in Burlington is that we're now experiencing the arrival of the F-35s. And I have a question for Mayor Weinberger because Mayor, you said that the F-35s would be only modestly louder than the F-16s that were here before. And so I want to know if you continue to feel that way and continue to support the basing despite the near daily disruption to people's lives.
Thanks, Max. I believe in the science, and I believe in the analysis, which in the way that we measure noise, which said then and has been confirmed by since the arrival, that in the way we address noise impacts, they're only modestly greater. In fact, they're less in some places. We're able to save homes close to the airport near South Burlington because there's actually less sound impacts there than there were under the F-16s. So what I said was accurate, and we where the impacts are greater, we've taken decisive action to address those impacts, and we're succeeding. We've secured a new sound program, moving away from tearing down homes and instead improving homes throughout the noise impacted area in Winooski and Burlington and South Burlington. We're going to be investing tens of millions of federal dollars and utility dollars to improve those homes in the years to come. So listen, this was a very challenging issue. It was one of the toughest over the last 9 years. I know that many people disagree with it, and that weighs on me. What I said then, I still believe. The National Guard, the Air National Guard, has been an important presence in this community for decades. We have seen examples of how important just in the last year the National Guard can be, and the way that they have served the community, helping us set up pop-up testing sites and played a key role in the pandemic response. We also benefit from the Air National Guard being here in terms of their other commitments to the community. And that there's always been sound impacts from the Air National Guard presence, and we've been able to manage our way through that as a community. We're going to continue to do that here. And in fact, we're going to bring far more resources to this than we've ever had before.
Thank you, Marona. Now you can ask a question of another candidate.
Great. If I can follow Patrick's lead and make it a double, I would be interested in hearing, or even for all three, if that's allowed. A key issue in this race is that the mayor is the chief executive officer. The mayor is responsible for over 20 direct reports and overseeing a budget that, if you add all the different budgets together, it's about $200 million a year. Good management of the city team and the budget has a huge impact on everything, on all these issues we've been talking about tonight, and certainly will be critical in responding to this, in rebuilding, leading the way out of this recession with an economically just recovery. I was hoping each three of them could talk about what their experience is managing significant budgets and teams of personnel.
Okay, we'll give each of you 1 minute to respond to the mayor's question. We want to start, Ali. Can't hear you. Did he pass?
No, he's on mute.
You're
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Ali.
I was saying, can you allow Max to start?
Okay,
Thank you.
Max?
Sure. Happy to. So this is a great question, and I thank you, Mayor, for it. I think it's a crucial one. Our time in city government has overlapped, and during that time, I've served on a variety of different committees, been through 9 different budgeting cycles, and developed a deep and intensive understanding of the functioning of city government, as well as the people that run city government. During that time, and both in and outside of city government, I've also cultivated relationships with bargaining units, keeping open communication with people like Damian Gilbert, who's the president of the AFSCME union, while also getting a firsthand experience for what it's like to actually be on the other side of that as a union organizer, understanding the complexities of collective bargaining and learning how not to work directly with collective bargaining units, but also how to effectively work with collective bargaining units. And really, that's the understanding that I'll be bringing to the table as your next mayor.
Thank you. Who wants to go next?
I can go next.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be important to talk about our differences first, Mr. Miro, because I am a city councilor, and I understand the processes, how things work. And you became mayor without even sitting as a city councilor. I think it's a very big difference that we have. I know the ropes exactly. And I also have the ability to be able to build a strong team. I came here 13 years ago, and what I have created and accomplished, I am not sure if you will be able to do it. Created a program with no funding. I found the funding, look for it, find it, and also hire people to work under my leadership to get things done. We manage budget, we manage people, and also we look into bringing new partners to the work that we do, right? I think that is exactly what I would want to bring. And again, I said it before, I'm going to say it again. I may not be an expert for everything, but the leadership that can take us forward, I have what it takes. And just my track record coming here with nothing, building and sitting in front of you to want to become mayor is just obvious that Ali would be an amazing mayor if the Burlingtonians want that.
Patrick?
Well, first I want to thank Mayor Weinberger for including me in the question. When it comes to my experience dealing with essentially management roles and large budgets, things like that, I currently and have worked in insurance. I've dealt with commercial insurance and businesses that are far larger than the city of Burlington as far as the monetary scale goes. A lot of people, when they think insurance, they just think, oh, the guy who sells me my car insurance. But when it comes down to it, I have to deal with other people's budgets, multiple budgets for small and large businesses, employment liabilities, general liabilities, and assessing all of those things. And I have CEOs call me and ask me for advice on how to move forward on things. So it isn't exactly going to be any sort of huge transition other than instead of being called for the advice, I'm the one making the decisions.
Okay, thank you. Jacob?
Jacob is not in the room right now, so I think.
Okay,
that
here he is.
Is
There
he
he is.
available?
Jacob?
Okay, there he is. Great. Thank you,
Thank you so
Jacob.
much. Thank you to our candidates and to all of you for attending. We want to give an opportunity to the candidate to make a closing statement, and each of you will have 2 minutes for your closing statement. We'll start, we'll go back following the alphabetical order, and we'll start with Ali Dieng.
Thank you. Yeah. So as a closing statement, I want to talk about what I would do as an ex-mayor, because our city currently needs an inclusive and trustworthy leader with an inclusive vision geared toward bringing people together and transforming this city to be the best it can be, the best small city actually in North America. So this campaign and our campaign is specifically around implementing that vision for an equitable, just city that works for everyone. As the next mayor, I will seek to eradicate all systems of oppression and discrimination against the people of color and minority groups. I want to re-strengthen and rebuild this community in making sure that residents trust the city, trust our local government. I want to make sure and ensure that public safety, fiscal responsibility, and sustainable economic development will be at the forefront of my leadership. On top of all of that, here are key priorities. Fight the public health crisis with expertise and leadership. And I'm not talking only about the opiate crisis, but also COVID-19. Support youth of all ages, and also bring fiscal responsibility, transparency back to budgeting. Restructure our downtown. I want to also eradicate what we call homelessness, right? And hope that you voters will join our campaign. Visit my website, alijeng.com, and hope to get your vote early. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we go to Max.
Sure. Well, just want to again thank you for hosting this debate. It's been a really, I think, helpful conversation for me as a candidate, but I think also for our community. So just want to thank you for all the work you put into this. I'm running for mayor to make Burlington a city where all can afford to live, especially low-income folks, working class people, and people living on fixed incomes, where city government is accessible to all and transparent and accountable with its actions, and where we invest in a vibrant future for the whole community using progressive policies that lift the local economy, expand public transportation and other sustainable transportation resources, clean up our lake, and reduce the impact on our climate. Throughout my years of service to Burlington, I've been increasingly learning how to reach out, especially to people who don't agree with me. Sometimes you have to reach farther because there might be folks who aren't willing to meet you halfway. There can be nothing more frustrating when folks won't meet you halfway, all the while telling you that you're not doing your part. That happens, but people aren't fooled. People at Burlington are smart people and understand the difference between politics and progress. Those who know me know this. I wear my heart on my sleeve and I work hard every day. They know that there is nobody I can't work with and very little I wouldn't do to ensure that the people of this city are afforded the promise of the oath of my office. I fight fiercely every day to ensure that that the city serves the people, not the other way around. We must end the trend of working people and families, people living on fixed incomes, being priced out of Burlington. Property taxes, rent, childcare, and utility costs are too high, and they're preventing so many people from being able to put down stable roots in Burlington. We must address systemic racism by leaning into efforts to transform public safety and community oversight. But it's not enough to prevent harm to our neighbors of color. We must create the conditions for people to thrive and through economic and cultural empowerment. My administration will enact bold climate policies to reduce carbon emissions related to transportation and heating, and city government can and should be leveraged in this fight. More of the same is not enough. I'm committed to working with all of you to do better for all of us. I believe that together we can and we will build the future that we deserve. Thank you so much. Please go to my website, maxformayorbtv.com, for more information.
Miro will be next.
Great. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you to all of AALV, the VIIC, and the Caroline Fund for organizing tonight and making it possible. And thank you to Ali, Max, and Patrick for the discussion tonight. Looking forward to more of them over the weeks to come. So as a community, we have been through so much together over the past 9 years. And together, we have met every test. When I first came into office, the city was on the edge of junk bond status because of a combination of poor management and decision-making blinded by ideology. Over the years, we rebuilt our AA credit rating and locked in more than $17 million in rising of taxpayer and ratepayer savings. With our financial foundation secure, we've been able to make massive infrastructure investments in our sidewalks, our streets, our parks, and as we've been discussing tonight, our water resource systems that protect the lake. And we have launched groundbreaking new initiatives to ensure equity and to protect the most vulnerable, including new housing options for people experiencing homelessness, like our low barrier year-round homeless shelter that we just opened in the last couple months, and a high quality childcare scholarships for low-income children, and new resources to fight the opioid crisis. All of this while exercising fiscal responsibility, while keeping municipal tax increases lower than the rate of inflation. And in 2020, the most challenging year in local government in generations, we fought and contained the virus as well as any community in America, while also forging meaningful progress on racial justice and addressing the climate emergency. Not everything has gone smoothly or as quickly as we hoped. However, my administration has the persistence and the commitment to keep working at problems until they are fixed. After long years, or in some cases, decades of trying, we now have a beautiful new bus station. City Hall Park has been revitalized, and the Moran frame is now at long last in construction. In this election, amidst multiple simultaneous crises, the city faces a clear choice: to continue forward with a proven, experienced team that has, in partnership with you, completed all this and much more, or return to the type of leadership that created such trouble a decade ago. I ask for your vote on town meeting day, which is, or before it, and the early voting starts on February 10th. Thank you and have a good evening.
Patrick?
So first, I want to thank you guys for inviting me to this. Without associations like yourself and inviting people without a lot of a platform like myself, our options would be basically the people who are already in power. I am here because I haven't liked what I've been seeing. I don't like what I see right now. The fiscal irresponsibility, the pollution of the lake, the infighting with police reform, and how that's just seemingly going nowhere, at least nowhere positive. When it comes straight down to it, I am the only candidate here and the only serious candidate that I know of. I know there's some people just running as a troll, which I'm not one of, but I'm the only one out of the four here that has not been here or in power while all of these problems have continued to go on or were established in the first place. If you want to see more of the same, I guess I'm not your guy, but if you want to see actual change and progress and the success of Burlington and the success of businesses here and the people here, that's what I'm all about and why I'm here.
Well, on that note, I'd like to take this time to thank all of you for participating in this very respectful dialogue, in my view. I want to thank you for also engaging with the community virtually in these very challenging times. I want to thank all the moderators who asked the questions this evening. I want to thank the Town Meeting TV, which will be rebroadcasting this debate on Comcast 1087, as well as Burlington Telecom 317 and 217 in the near future. The days will follow. To the lives lost due to COVID-19, to those families, I want to take this moment to say we are deeply sorry. And I hope that we continue to do better as a community to protect one another. To the healthcare workers, frontline workers at grocery stores, and any other outlet that makes sure that despite this challenging time, our community continues to function. We would like to send our deepest and sincere thank you. You are our heroes in this time. Thank you to the virtual participants who took the time to listen in. We are hopeful that we will be back in the near future to learn more about the plans that our candidates have for the city of Burlington. Thank you again and have a good evening.